Hi, my name is Grace Collins. I'll be going over my uh, contemporary art lesson plan. You'll see my first slide is my classroom expectations. I always start off my slideshows that I do with my students. This will be a slideshow that I present to my students. I always start them off with their expectations and elements of art is a call response procedure that we do at the beginning of our classes. So that's what these first two slides are. I just do that so kiddos remember the expectations as they come into my classroom, since they do only see me once a week. Here's our title slide, a little bit of culture and a lot of minimalism. I have the national core standards on my first slide. That's really there just to remind me of what we're doing and letting admin know that, hey, I know what I'm doing. We're following the national core standards. In Arizona, we don't have our own state standards for arts. We use the national core standards. So those are developing skills in multiple art making techniques and experiment with approaches through practice, different approaches being elements and principles of modern art, applying artistic norms of diverse cultures, so on and so forth. The second one is demonstrate quality craftsmanship through care for and use of materials, tools, and equipment. This will be a painting project. I will also be introducing drawing compasses to them. They've never used a drawing compass before, at least not with me. So I want to make sure that they are able to use those safely and effectively and know how to care for and clean them so that way other kids can use them. The third one is identify and demonstrate diverse methods of artistic investigation to choose an approach for beginning a work of art. This can be such as researching subject matter techniques, the work of other artists. We will be looking at two artists as a class, Jaime Dominguez and Gabriel Orozco. I'm still getting used to saying his last name, pardon my awkward pause there. The last one is then distinguish between relevant and non-relevant contextual information to support an interpretation of the mood, the message, or the meaning of that artwork. We will be going into some of the artists' biographies and we'll go through what's important there. Essential questions: how can personal culture impact the artwork a person creates? How can an idea be communicated with minimalist elements? What are some ways you can plan a work of art? Um, Then we have our learning objectives. I also have these on my board the week that we do them. So I will be putting these on my whiteboard as well for students to see. But they are, I can discuss the meaning behind the work of art using details of the artist's lives and culture. I can look at different artists and create thumbnail sketches of 4 different compositions based on the artwork we've looked at. I can design a minimalist composition. I can demonstrate proper use and care of temper cakes and drawing compasses. You may notice that I use I can statements. This is a requirement of the school that I work at. So we do not use the student will. We say I can, and we put our objectives in student-friendly language since they're required to be posted, and oftentimes we do read them with the students. In my lesson plan that I submitted, I did use the student will type of language instead. All of my learning objectives relate back to the national standards that are being used in this lesson. Our first vocabulary word in the lesson is culture. I took the definition off of Kids Britannica. Culture is a pattern of behavior shared by a society or a group of people. Many different things make up a society's culture. These things include food, language, clothing, tools, music, arts, customs, belief, and religion. Then I do have a nice image off to the side that represents all those same ideas and is a little bit more pictorial for some of my lower students that might not understand some of the words being said. Then at this point, they'll all be getting a think sheet passed out to them. What that is just a sheet for them to write down their thoughts. And I've got some prompted questions for them to answer, like what culture do you identify with? What are some foods in your culture? What clothing do you wear? Who are some famous people who are in your same culture? Just because I want students to recognize that yes, we're all in the American culture, but some of us might identify with different subcultures as well. They'll be sharing their answers with their tables, and I'll make sure students remember to be respectful as they do so. Then we'll go right into our first artist, and we'll talk about some of his work, his little biography. Jaime Dominguez is from Guadalajara, Mexico, works with traditional Mexican pigments that are bright and bold, which he actually does take some of the pigments that traditional artists use, and he then combines them to make, or combines them with a binder to make his airbrush pigments, which is pretty cool. He draws inspiration from indigenous Mexican culture. We'll go over some of his peyote series, where he's looking at the peyote plants that the native Hoytel people use in some of their religious ceremonies. That has like a hallucinogenic property. I probably won't tell the students that it has a hallucinogenic property, but some of them might already know. And then that uses minimalist designs. The word minimalist is highlighted because it will be defined on the very next slide. Here we go. So minimalist, I have one of the Jaime Dominguez pictures off to the right, and then good old Mondrian on the left. I'll have a student read the definition. Then we go into work, talking about one of Jaime Dominguez's one of his works, asking what do you see, what elements of art are being used. I'll probably also ask kids, what does this artwork make you think? What does it make you feel? And a few other questions to get them started on their discussion. Then we have his Alebrije Madre sculpture. I'll ask students what art object it is, what does the name mean. I have a lot of Hispanic students, so a lot of them will be able to tell us what an alebrije is and what the word madre means. If we remember the movie Coco from several years back now, alebrijes made a big appearance where they were the spirit animals or the dreamlike animals. So we'll be going over those a little bit. And then again, ask them what they see and what's maybe similar and different between the last piece of art versus this one. Then I have some more of his work. The third one, the one that's a circle with the pink bottom and red top, that's from his peyote series, so we'll be talking about that. Then we have Gabriel Orozco, and it's his little biography that he was born in Jalapa, Veracruz, Mexico, that he lives in Tokyo and Mexico City. He splits his time between the two, and how he's interested in complex geometry and mapping, and that he creates various different types of artwork. When I was doing my research for him, it looked like he was actually helping build a giant pedestrian bridge somewhere in Mexico. I have to do some more research on that, and maybe I can present that to my students as well. So here's some of his work. The diagram 3, so ask students, what do you see? How do you think it was made? I believe this is one of his pieces that he used a computer program to map out different circles. I'll have to research a little bit more about this piece in particular, but I know with the next piece, the samurai tree, he made it so that the circles had to touch in the middle of each of the circles, and it went to the very edge of the page. He also used the rules of a chess piece knight to create the color pattern. So 2 spaces forward, 1 space to left or right is how he determined each of the colors. His center circle had all 4 of his colors that he was using: white, blue, gold, and red. And then he made over 600 variations of these. These were digital prints. He kind of let the computer program do his thing, and he printed all of the different variations of them. And then here's some more of his work. And then questions I'll be asking some students are, what are some of the things you liked in this artwork? What are some things that you still have questions about? What are some things that you want to take and use in your own artwork? And what do you think their planning processes look like? I'll be having students write their answers to these questions on the back of their think sheets, and then they'll be sharing at their table groups their answer. And I'll be walking around to make sure I get in on some of their conversations. Alright, then I'll show them my answer or to our minimalist artwork prompt, where I looked at Jaime Dominguez's work, letting kids know that they can take ideas from either artist and reminding them that they should not copy me. Then from there we will start either start our thumbnails, or we might hit the bell and we'll have to do our thumbnail sketches on day 2. I did plan 5 days for this project, so we will see what happens. But then either later that class or the very next class that I see them, which will be the following week, we'll review what we learned, the artists that we went over, and then I'll be showing them how to do a thumbnail. This is a slide that defines what a thumbnail is, shows some examples of thumbnails, and then this slide goes over what we'll be doing specifically. This next slide lets me know it's time for me to pull out my document camera and get to work showing them in person how to do it with a demonstration. The thumbnail class should take a whole class period for them to do their thumbnails. Sorry, I moved on to the slide too early, but it should take one full class to do their thumbnails. Once they decide on a winning thumbnail, they'll be making 4. Once they decide on a winning one, then they'll get their watercolor paper to sketch out their idea. They'll have compasses and rulers to help make their lines and their circles a little bit better. Then the next class, the third class, they'll be reviewing some technique to make tints and shades. As we saw in Jaime Dominguez's work, he uses a lot of tints. Not so much on the shades, but I wanted to review that with students. The last time that they've done a painting tints and shades project was in 2nd grade, so it's been a little bit of time for them. Last year in 4th grade they were doing color pencil shading with spheres, and so they still learned about it, but it was a different medium, and so they haven't practiced it in a while. They will be reviewing some of the vocabulary, tint, shade, and then if they remember what tone is, which they should, it's around the room so they can look at it. They'll get a sticker if they remember what it means or what the word is. This slide just goes over the parameters of what we're doing and the rules. I want to make sure that they don't switch colors as we're doing this. If they choose red for their hue, they're going to use red for the whole thing, just because we are using tempera cakes and the cleaning process in between each color, it can eat up a lot of time, and I just don't have that time to waste waiting on kids to clean their paint. So they're going to be using one color for all their tints and all their shades. That'll take one class, and then the 4th class, they'll continue on their final project. This slide just goes over what their final project will look like and like the rules. So it's going to be on a 9x12 watercolor paper. They'll already have had that from their thumbnail sketch day, reminding them it must follow one of your thumbnail sketches, giving them 2 classes to finish their work. If it takes more than 2 classes, it takes more than 2 classes. Sometimes that happens. Reminding them of their drawing tools that they're using, rulers and compasses. And the paint, they will be using small round brushes. If I do this project with students, which I am planning on doing, I'll actually have to get new paint brushes for my classroom. My round brushes have been through the ringer. And then the last little requirement is they must use some different values that we learned how to make, just so that that part of the lesson isn't in vain and they learn some of the skills that they're using. They don't have to use a lot of it, but they should use some.